What do you do with all that money when you have billions in the bank? Welcome to the strange world of the super rich, where billionaires are shunning glamorous yachts and private jets in favor of something a bit more practical. That's right, the newest must-have accessory for the elite is a luxury survival bunker. In late 2023, the media was full of the revelation Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg was spending over $100 million on a bunker on his Hawaii Island property. Zuckerberg isn't the only billionaire with an instinct to survive any catastrophe that will befall the Earth. Bill Gates, Richard Branson, Larry Page, and even Oprah Winfrey are also said to have plans to build underground havens just in case. These are probably the most famous names of a growing group that has become known as doomsday preppers. They've been around for decades and first came to people's attention during the Cold War with concern over a nuclear holocaust. Typically, they would be people looking to hide away in some rural outback with the skills and tenacity to survive independently. However, since the end of the Cold War, preparing for a global catastrophe has become much more commercial. With the decommissioning of former military nuclear silos and bunkers, individuals and entrepreneurs see them as a good starting point to turn them into luxury survival bunkers. Dante Vicino is the operations director of Vivos X Point, the largest survival community on Earth.
When governments have, effectively blank checkbooks, right? Of taxpayer money to make this happen, they tend to really get it right because they can just throw as much money they can throw as much money at it as they want. Whereas individuals like ourselves, we'd have to find that money somewhere and good luck, And so really, if you can find one where all the engineering's been done, and it is, it's the real deal. It's a real bona fide military, shelter, bunker. Then that you're starting with something that's really, really good. Now, obviously, you have to go in and inspect the condition of it. There are times we have passed on certain structures because they might have been great when they were built, but they were left in disrepair over the years, and they can falter, and we don't want that, right? So, but at the end of the day, if you're going to start from scratch, be ready to have a ton of money, be it yours or someone else's.
Repurposed from old gloomy shelters and missile silos, these bunkers showcase opulence and security for those preparing for doomsday. But as Dante explains, every survival bunker must meet some essential criteria.
Number one is location, right? It has to be in an area that is relatively safe, relatively unpopulated. When people ask us, well, why don't you go and put one outside of LA? I would buy it in a heartbeat. Well, because it's too close to a major population center. Also, it could be on a fault line, which it could crack in half if it was on a fault line, no matter how strong it is. You want it to be in an area that wouldn't otherwise be targeted, right? So again, most of the eastern and western coasts are not going to be viable for that. So Midwest it is, for the most part, right? At least we're talking in the U.S. here. You want it to be in a place where you're not going to be impeded by local municipalities to do your improvements, right? We've been approached so many times by people in Australia and, other Commonwealth countries as well. And they've said, hey, we need to have your thing right here. We need to have your bunker here. Our people want it, we need it. That's great, but your government doesn't want us. They're going to red tape us, the whole way through, and so that's a challenge as well. Where's a place that has, I mentioned this a few moments ago, where's a place that has access to water? Do you have a well? Is there good drainage and runoff? Are there flora and fauna that will be supportive of life coming back out on the other side of an event, right? Or is it a very bitter and harsh environment, right? Um, and so there's so many different factors, um, into the viability that play into the viability of one of these places. So just having the perfect structure and putting it, say spin the globe and throw a dart and wherever it lands, that's not exactly the right way to go about it, right?
With every amenity, advanced security systems, and abundant supplies, survival bunkers offer comfort and protection on a grand scale. Even this isn't enough for the mega rich, so their bunkers are custom made with luxury far beyond basic bomb shelters. They have swimming pools, movie theaters, gourmet kitchens, and gyms. The buildings themselves go far beyond traditional bunkers, offering state-of-the-art technology, reinforced structures, and self-sustainability features to ensure survival in the face of potential disaster. The intricate designs and top-of-the-line security systems incorporated into these shelters showcase a fusion of luxury and functionality, catering to the elite willing to invest millions into their protection. But according to Dante Vicino, spending that amount of money on your bunker isn't the answer.
Let's say you have the location just perfectly dialed in. Now, inside that bunker, you want to have creature comforts, and that's something that we as a company really believe in. Well, it's twofold. One is creature comforts, and the second is community. Okay, something that potentially Zuckerberg or Bill Gates or whoever else has bunkers, these famous 1%ers that have it, or 1% of the 1%, as it were, right? Is let's say it was just for themselves and their closest, their family or their personnel that they have, their staff. That's all great, but for the rest of us, we believe in having more than just your family, right? Having other people as a community that you can rely on them and they can rely on you, and you can share your skills and your values, and because we as people are social creatures, right? To just be in a little hidey hole by yourself, no man is an island, and no family is an island either. And so to be able to have creature comforts and to have people around you that care, those are huge things. And if you didn't have those two elements, even in the perfect location, I'd wager you're still screwed.
Surviving a dark age catastrophe on Earth is one thing, but some super rich are far from earthbound.
Then we want to make sure that there's enough of a seed of human civilization somewhere else to bring civilization back, and perhaps shorten the length of the dark ages. I think that's why it's important to get a self-sustaining base, ideally on Mars, because Mars is far enough away from Earth that a war on Earth, the Mars base might survive. It's more likely to survive than a moon base. But I think a moon base and a Mars base that could perhaps help regenerate life back here on Earth would be really important, and to get that done before a possible World War III.
For those still stuck on Earth, bunker living can never be the same as living on the surface. Going underground also means accepting it could be some time before you see the light of day again.
We outfit our bunkers to be autonomous in lockdown survival mode for a minimum of 1 year. Okay, if you look at the data, it's all out there. Historically, most major catastrophic events will pass in 3 months' time, 3 to 4 months even, right? Certain things happen very quickly. Other things happen a little more, protracted over a longer period of time. But we have yet to see anything on this planet, in our current modern civilization, that would have forced any particular group of people to stay underground for more than a year.
Living side by side with people whose only commonality is a will to survive for so long needs careful management.
And just because someone can afford it doesn't mean they get in, okay? We want to qualify people, one-on-one conversations, right? But through one-on-one conversations, to see if they seem like a reasonable person, okay? Just because you have the ability to afford it doesn't mean you're getting one. But similarly, if you have all the skills in the world, but you can't afford it, then we're still a business at the end of the day, right? At some point in time, if we had the angel investors come through, and we can do this as a pure humanitarian aid, then we would, okay? We would completely turn this around and say, yes, we're just going to give it away, okay? But until that day comes, it's still a business.
However, these bunkers also raise questions about inequality. The opulent billionaire bunkers show a chasm between the ultra-rich and everyone else. Maybe having more money than you can count isn't the best criterion for judging whether someone survives a global event.
Remember to hit the subscribe button and ring that bell to stay updated with our latest content. And while you're here, why not check out another one of our exciting videos? Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.